I've been a little concerned that while we can be ready, if the money flows through the federal government, they've got to be ready as well and be able to look at processes differently and be able to deliver. So we're pretty well prepared. We've got some things we're still working on. We assigned a program manager for this. We took John Chiglow, who was our project manager on I-35W. He was kind of finishing up there. We took him, we brought him into the central office, we made him a program manager, and it's been a really good fit for us because he's able to use a lot of the creative techniques to accelerate things that he utilized on I-35W to bring into this program. So that's where we're at, and we're hoping to get some information out to our partners either today or early next week on where we're at and the thinking that's occurring. You know, we're thinking not only about creating jobs, but we're thinking about economic development based on what those jobs will be. We're trying to get a broad cross-section of jobs or projects out there. We're not just looking at one particular kind of work. We're trying to make sure we can really keep our industry healthy. And we're looking across the state. We're not looking at a formula-based approach. We're looking at projects that make sense across the state. So we've got some broad thinking occurring with this program, and we'll see what happens. I think based on what you all saw yesterday, there was a little disappointment that there's some thinking that it could have been more. And I know if you pull the numbers together nationally, there's a lot of needs out there, and people thought that it could have been more for the infrastructure, whether it be highways and bridges or transit, or mass transit. But it's still a work in progress, and I can assure you that we'll be ready to deliver, and we will deliver. So I want to talk a little bit about rail. We're in the midst of developing a statewide rail plan. It was something that the legislature asked us to do. We were going to do it anyhow, but we're getting underway with that. We pulled together a group of rail folks to help us develop a scope of work. We've got a pretty good scope of work out there, and I'm pretty excited about that. When we developed that, one of the things that was pretty obvious to me was we've got a lot of various rail interests around our state. And as I've talked to Mr. Oberstar and his staff, and I always get feedback from them that say, well, we want to know what is the plan in Minnesota. They're trying to figure out what to support. And so it was very obvious to me that we've got a lot of varied interests, and we've got to start pulling those together. So I created a group called a Rail Forum, and invited various rail stakeholders to the table, and it's an evolving group, and we'll probably invite more people as we move along. But it's an attempt to kind of bring all the interests together so that when people ask us inside the Beltway, what's Minnesota doing, we can clearly define what we're doing and what we're all about. Let me mention a word or two about the organizational structure at MnDOT. We restructured, we did some things in the central office. The districts remain pretty much intact. In the central office, we restructured to kind of reflect that strategic vision that you see in front of you, that document. And we created a new division called the Safety Policy and Research, or Safety Policy and Strategic Initiative Division. And again, it was an attempt to have a strong focus on safety and innovation. We also created a chief counsel position, and a lot of people have asked about that and why we did that. But you know, we're an organization of 4,500 people, and it's clearly a need in my mind for a chief counsel to advise us and to help employees. And while we're served by the Attorney General in litigation, there are certain things the Attorney General can't do. And so as we move in these new directions, particularly in innovation, we needed some legal guidance available to help us and to develop new policies where appropriate, so we created that. We elevated the position of CFO, and the CFO position was in the organization before, but we created a distinct position that's in the leadership, on the leadership team, that's a CFO. And we also created something pretty unique to transportation. We created a transportation ombudsman. And the reason I did that is I wanted I wanted it to be an access point for external stakeholders to the department, and access to me personally. And the ombudsman role is to serve external stakeholders, and if there are issues out there where people seemingly can't get answers, they've gone through traditional routes, they can access the ombudsman, discuss the issues, and resolve them in some way. So I kind of dubbed the ombudsman as the conscience of the department, and that's truly what she's there to do, is to look at things happening in our communities, determine if we're doing the right things or if there are things we can adjust to be more responsive to the public, then that's what we'll do. I'll just close by highlighting a couple other things. There's a legislative task force out there that's concluding its work on looking at the organization and management of MnDOT, and they've come up with some recommendations that we've got to take a look at. This was the task force that was in the legislation, and the Minnesota Chamber had a lot to do with the development of this task force. They're pretty much finished, and they've got some recommendations that we need to look at, and we'll be doing that very shortly. You'll be hearing more about that. One of the questions that you asked me to address here is this group and the use of this group in the future and how it can be effective in our community. And I want to share with you a thought on that. One of the things that I started is a series of commissioners forums, and I thought that there are topics out there that I'd like to bring pertinent stakeholders together to have a dialogue or a discussion. And we recently had one at the university that revolved around innovative financing and how I can leverage our money and use innovative financing techniques. And one of the thoughts that came up at that meeting was the fact that we've got all these corridor groups out here in our state. We've got some pretty strong groups of people that have come together for specific reasons or for specific causes, and we need to utilize them better. And if you look around this country, you don't find strong groups like this everywhere. And we've got a lot of strong groups similar to yours across our state that we could really leverage better, I think, if you can utilize input from your group, not only for what you're interested in, but for some of these statewide issues that we're trying to address. And innovative financing was a great example of this, where I think we could use a group like yours and bring other groups like yours together and have a discussion about how we can use innovative financing techniques collaboratively to address some of these issues. And I know, as you're looking to address issues on this corridor, resources always come up. Do we have the resources we need? Well, maybe collectively, by working with other groups, we can come up with some new ideas, particularly using innovative financing techniques where we can be more collaborative and together come up with some of these solutions, instead of always saying we don't have the resources or that we just can't pull it together at this time. So I think I really like that idea, and I think that is a future opportunity for this group, and I'm going to be exploring that. I'm going to come back to you with a proposal probably. So I think I'll close with that, and that kind of outlines a few things on where we're at. And I'll have to admit, I know you may have some specific project-related questions. Not the expert on those. We have Nell Ray here, and Nell Ray can certainly address some specific project-related questions that